There's quite a bit about the election that we still don't know for sure. The actual results are, for some reason, being disputed to this day. But there are a few things that we do know quite a bit about, and that is how the people, when given the chance, weighed in on the topic of drugs, legalization, decriminalization, and all of that. And joining us now to break down an awesome article about that aspect of this election is politics columnist for Business Insider, Anthony Fisher. Welcome back to the Damage Report.
Thanks for having me back.
Glad to have you here. So we did an initial roundup after the election of some of the ballot initiatives and things like that happened. And it was one of the sort of standout things that marijuana legalization took off, even though it didn't seem like the media was talking about that topic very much. You actually call it sort of like the winner of the election itself.
Yeah, I mean, there were a lot of jokes about drugs being the winner of the election, and that's cute and all. But we're the winners of this election because red states and blue states, wherever it was on the ballot, liberalization of drug laws won. Whether it was Oregon completely decriminalizing all drugs, which has been misconstrued as legalization. It's very different. There were several states where full marijuana legalization, recreational legalization was on the ballot, specifically in New Jersey, which is a very big deal and makes marijuana legalization in New York almost an inevitability. And even in states like South Dakota, they voted to decriminalize medical marijuana, or they approved medical marijuana, pardon me. So wherever it was on the ballot, it didn't matter any culture war business, it didn't matter any economics. Everyone said they're tired of the drug war because it's much like alcohol prohibition in the 20s, it's a failure. The winners are brutalizing gangs and cartels, and it also empowers the police state. The federal drug apparatus, local cops getting federal money to fight the drug war, and everybody has kind of realized that drugs are still, you can get drugs wherever if you're motivated enough to do so, and the blood, life, treasure, all the people in prison, all the lives ruined, all the children that grow up without fathers. This is the result of the drug war. This is the legacy of the drug war. And so whenever it was available for people to say, I would like to tone this down a bit, they took it.
That's interesting. I hadn't thought specifically about the impact of New Jersey. We'll go broader in a minute, but you say that it makes the legalization in New York sort of inevitable. In practice, is it going, like if you're living in New York City, is it going to feel effectively like it's legalized even in the run up to perhaps, in 4 years, maybe it's on the ballot?
Well, first off, it's very unlikely that it'll be on the ballot in New York. We typically, I'm a New Yorker, pretty much a lifelong New Yorker, and we very rarely have these kind of sweeping initiatives on the ballot. But it has been, the state has been fully dominated by the Democratic Party for the last 2 years. The legislature, the governor, and they couldn't get a deal done because, rightfully so, some representatives of heavily black communities, lower income communities that have been disproportionately negatively affected by the drug war, they want guarantees through when marijuana is fully legalized. They want guarantees that their communities will be able to benefit from the profits that are made at the dispensaries. It's an important issue. In my opinion, it shouldn't be the deal breaker that it's been for the last 2 years, because as long as marijuana is in any way criminalized, criminals are going to be the winners of this and people are going to be the losers. So it's not going to be on the ballot. My hope is, especially after COVID, Andrew Cuomo has gone on the record after previously being very, very much against marijuana legalization, saying it's time, it's past time, and we actually should do it to fund the deficits caused by the COVID pandemic, which seems like a no-brainer. Like, put fewer people in jail, have cops having fewer bad confrontations with citizenry, and make some money. Cultivating and selling a product that is already widely available and widely popular. So in New York, for people who don't understand the geography of lower New York City and New Jersey are so close and share so many transit hubs that they basically are attached to each other. So people that are working their whole day in New York, going back to New Jersey, they're living under a different law, but it's the same life, it's the same day. So it feels to me like it can't possibly this can't possibly hold. Criminalization in New York can't possibly hold if it's legal a mile across the river.
And so, as you said, this wasn't just a thing of blue states; it was in red states as well. And although, look, I don't pay that much attention on a day-to-day basis to right-wing media, it's possible that they're incensed by all this legalization that's been going on. I haven't seen it. I know our country has been focused on other things over the past few weeks. Does it seem like we've passed some sort of point where you're just gonna, in 4 years, you're gonna have another round of ballot initiatives, and then at that point, effectively, most people live somewhere where it's legal? Or are we thinking that society has shifted so much and the perceived political backlash to federal legalization just isn't really there anymore, that perhaps Biden and the Democrats will actually push for it federally? Which of those paths do you think is more likely, if either?
Well, there's only so much you can do federally. The most important thing that Joe Biden can do, and it's not something that he's indicated he will do, is have his attorney general take marijuana off the list of Schedule I drugs, which are drugs like heroin, drugs that are considered to have no medicinal value and to be the most addictive and destructive. It's absurd that marijuana is on that. And because it's on that, even in states that have fully legal recreational marijuana, where you can go to a dispensary and buy marijuana, they still have to operate cash businesses or use debit cards because banks won't work with them. And credit card companies are banks. So you're creating a dangerous situation where these places that are selling legal recreational marijuana are now loaded with cash. They're a robbery target, and you're also missing out on a whole lot of tax revenue. So that's one thing that I think is possible. Likely, I don't know. Joe Biden's given me no reason to believe he will ever be ahead of the curve on liberalizing drug laws. But I will say this, that on a bipartisan basis, the American public is overwhelmingly for the legalization of marijuana and for the decriminalization of a whole lot of other things. I've seen some conservative, socially conservative pushback to specifically Oregon's, pretty revolutionary proposal to decriminalize all drugs. I've seen some backlash to that, but in general, even people who are pretty staunchly on the right, and certainly people who are pro-Trump, feel like it's not anyone's business. It's not the government's business if whether or not you smoke marijuana or whether your neighbor does, whether you imbibe or not. It doesn't affect you. And if anything, most people have probably known somebody whose life was ruined for a petty drug charge. So I do pass the point of no return as far as states. I think the states, it's just going to be inevitable. It's going to be a domino effect. Federal, like whether it's going to be by an act of Congress, I don't hold out much hope. And I can't even say I'm cautiously optimistic that Joe Biden will take marijuana off of Schedule I, but I'm hopeful.
Interesting. And look, perhaps my last question, you might have already sort of answered it, but just because I don't necessarily follow all the states, has there been any instance where there's been backsliding on this, where it's been either legalized by the legislature or by a ballot initiative, whether decriminalized or actually legalized, and then they've gone back and restricted it further? Have we seen that in any cases in the US at the state level?
Well, the only case that I could say that's even sort of like that, and it's a loose analogy, would be New Jersey, because New Jersey legalized medical marijuana a very long time ago. But I believe it was right before Chris Christie took office. And when Chris Christie took office, he basically did everything he could to prevent dispensaries from opening. So I think at one point in Christie's second term, I did a story about medical marijuana in New Jersey, and I believe that there were 2 legal medical marijuana dispensaries open in the entire state. They were only open a couple days a week by appointment. Might as well not have existed at all. So there have been instances, and again, now that we're going back almost a decade, where a state backslid on drug law liberalization, but that's the only example I can think of. And think of how far New Jersey has come since then to full legalization.
Exactly. Well, everyone, if you'd like more information about the impact of this election on drug laws nationally, Anthony's article is available at Business Insider called "Americans Have Declared the Drug War is Over." You should definitely take a look at it. And as always, thank you for joining us. Really appreciate it.
Thanks for having me.
Check out the Damage Report podcast each day, wherever you get your podcasts, whether Pocket Casts or Stitcher or iTunes. You can join me as I give you the news and stories you want, with a range of co-hosts and interview guests jumping in on the fun each day. Again, that's the Damage Report, wherever you get your podcasts. And if you get them at iTunes, don't forget to rate and review. Sometimes I'll read them live on the show.